This thing is 7, 8 feet tall, makes horrendous sounds.
Worldwide, people report seeing a strange creature.
It was breaking branches off trees and eating the sap. Its strength was amazing.
From China and Siberia to India and North America.
If I would have known what was going to happen, I wouldn't have come in here.
I just thought this could very possibly be a Bigfoot.
Many believe it's a myth or a hoax.
And he brought a pair of these.
It is a hoax phenomenon, yes. It's also a misperception phenomenon.
But for those who have encountered this creature, there is no doubt.
There's something out there for sure
That exists.
We're headed up to my primary research area in an undisclosed part of the Adirondacks.
Steve Culls is a former New York private investigator who is now turning his sights on Sasquatch.
This area has had 30 years worth of sighting reports. My lifetime mission is to get some kind of DNA evidence, along with some photographic evidence, audio evidence, to put together a big picture to prove it to science that, yes, the Sasquatch does exist. I know it's out here. I've seen him.
Culls says his encounter occurred during a camping trip in 2011 as he walked to his car to get batteries.
I get my batteries, and I decide to shine my flashlight to the road. At about 300 feet, there's this telephone pole, and there was something standing there, 8 foot tall. And I could see its reddish, glowing eyes looking back at me. And they're blinking. After about 40 seconds, I moved my flashlight a little bit, twitched it, and it just turned around and walked back in the woods. All I could feel was utter shock. I actually stood and watched one, and it watched me, which was probably the most unnerving thing.
Culls now returns to the site of that encounter.
Hey guys, you ready to do this?
Ready to do it.
With a search team.
All right, what are we using tonight?
All right, so what we got tonight is we're going to use employ a DVR system. Also, we brought a bionic ear. We have digital recorders that we're going to place.
Gary Robusto will supervise the team's high-tech gear aimed at capturing evidence.
What's the plan of attack tonight? So I know where to set the equipment up, or I know where to have a camera.
Let's deploy the trail cams to our west, deploy the DVR to the east.
Right.
With the sighting I had, given the history of this place, I think that'll be the best place for the DVR. There's something out there for sure that exists, not just might exist.
First, say, chances are very high to meet the Yeti over there in the cave in Metro Shelter.
Something big, something just absolutely incredible.
First there was the abominable snowman in the Himalayas, now Bigfoot in South Dakota.
People in Little Eagle are so scared that every night squads of men with loaded rifles take off in search of Bigfoot.
Kuhl's accounts appear similar to eyewitness reports all over the world.
It was breaking branches off trees and eating the sap. Its strength was amazing.
He was probably 4 foot or better across the shoulders. He was probably 7.
Eyes were very bright yellow, and they were luminescent.
Поворачивайся, он стоит выше деревьев, что ли. Я такого видела. It's a hairy monster on the corner of the woods.
I'd never been so scared in my life.
Stories of Sasquatch or Bigfoot, the Himalayan Yeti, the Chinese Yeren, and others have long been told on nearly every continent.
There's a great deal of consistency in Sasquatch reports, most of which appear to be adult males. The large, hair-covered, broad-shouldered, massive-chested animal with a short, thick neck, often described as no neck, long arms reaching below the knee, a face with a flattened nose, deep-set eyes, often brow ridges, sometimes a conical head. Pretty consistent.
In North America and eastern reaches of Siberia and China, Southeast Asia, there are remarkable correlations and similarities between the descriptions of an upright, hair-covered creature. When you look at North America, the reports are concentrated in the Sierra Nevada and the coastal ranges, the Cascades, and on up into the Canadian Rockies, and down here into the New England states, upstate New York, and western Pennsylvania.
But most in the scientific community do not believe that this creature exists.
To me, I see Bigfoot as a problem. There's thousands of people that claim to have seen it, and there's no physical evidence for it. So either the animal is elusive or it doesn't exist.
We invent monsters in our image, and a monster version of us is probably going to be a big hairy animal. So right away, it's not a stretch for us to sort of reinvent him independently around the world.
Well, I think it's pretty unlikely that an animal of that size could go undetected in North America for a long period of time.
But investigator Steve Coles and others like him fully believe in the existence of Sasquatch.
That's going to be in the general vicinity of one of the sightings around here.
Okay.
So that'll work.
Go all the way to the left. I'm just trying to see what I have for a view.
Our strategy is very simple. Set up the technology, call in the Sasquatch, and let them come through our equipment.
How about now? Roger that.
What we're doing here is we're going to put a motion-activated infrared camera, and once we turn it on, any motion will activate it. It'll take a burst of 6 shots over 30 seconds. This camera will give us a shot anything 40 to 50 feet out.
I'm going to put a digital recorder up underneath the trail cam, so any kind of audio, anything that we can hear, just basically will extend our hearing out there.
With the technology perimeter set, team member Jeff Thomas tests the handheld infrared thermal imaging camera, which highlights anything emitting heat.
If something comes through here in this area, we're going to have it covered. Along with the other trail cameras, the audio traps, we should be good to go.
One could be standing like right behind you, you don't even know. You know what I mean? You never know.
Coles and his team are now ready to begin looking for Sasquatch. But most sightings happen suddenly and without warning, which is exactly the case with a group of Idaho high school students.
Look at each other. I noticed that it was walking fairly easily. At first we just saw the push through. It looked like
It was February. It was pretty cold. It was an overcast day. It had just gotten done snowing. A lot of the leaves on the trees were gone.
We were gathering data for our environmental science class. We had been up here 2 times before to test the amount of erosion that occurs within the canyon. When we first saw it, it was probably over here more, and we got it about when it walked through that clearing on the camera.
It was close to the top of that ridge, just walking down, and it looked fairly big and dark, black.
It really stood out in the snow.
I wouldn't say you could make any hair out, though. I'd say more just a dark bulge.
Yeah.
You could really make it out in the snow, though, and I mean, it was moving pretty well through what was a lot of snow, so.
Like 10 seconds later, I decided to pull out the camera. At that time, it was coming into that clearing. I zoomed in on it, and then it walked behind there, I think, and then just down over the top of that ridge.
We just kept watching the thing until it disappeared. After that, one of us kind of joked, like, is that a Bigfoot? And then a couple of us kind of laughed, and then the more we kind of thought about it, you know, we don't really know what it was.
It's obviously something that we don't know. It's obviously something mysterious, but I'm not going to come here and say it was a Sasquatch.
I never really thought too much about Bigfoot before, but this definitely put it in my mind that there's definitely the possibility.
When I first saw it, I was like, that's not a person. I was kind of confused. I was like, I don't really know what it was. I've never seen anything like this.
I thought we should go check it out just to hopefully figure out what it was we saw.
To get up the mountain was really tough. It took us close to an hour, I'd say.
We found the line of tracks that came down the ridge this way.
We saw a lot of snow punches showing that something had definitely walked there recently. There was one particular footprint that stuck out, and you could see some, it looked like toe marks defined in the footprint.
I'm in outdoors a lot. I know what a moose track looks like. I know bear tracks. I can tell fresh tracks versus old tracks. I haven't really seen anything like that before.
It was a little like, well, that's weird, you know? I don't really know what that is.
Like, it was bigger than a human footprint, but it looked a lot like a human footprint.
When I looked at the track and realized it wasn't anything I had seen before, I just thought, you know, this could very possibly be a Bigfoot.
They contact Idaho State University professor of anatomy and anthropology, Dr. Jeffrey Meldrum.
As a student of both human and comparative primate anatomy, I can offer some expertise in evaluating the likelihood of the image on a piece of film or video being simply a man in a fur suit, or something else, something yet to be accounted for.
Since 1995, Meldrum has been analyzing data from incidents like the Pocatello sighting.
I have to admit my first reaction was, here's some high schoolers that are bored, and here's a fun way to spend the weekend. But what at first glance might have been taken to be just a practical joke started to weave a very interesting story that indicated maybe they did see something that warranted further investigation.
Meldrum, who has amassed more than 200 casts and photos of footprints from reported Sasquatch sightings, examines the photo evidence that the teens captured.
This footprint differs from a human footprint most decidedly by the lack of an arch and in the lack of a well-differentiated ball of the foot. This footprint displays many of the characteristics that I would look for in a typical Sasquatch track. The broad heel, the relatively long heel to length ratio, the toes disposed across the foot in a more squared-off fashion, and less differentiation in the size of the big toe relative to the remaining toes. All those features would combine to suggest that this may very well be the real deal.
There are a number of problems with considering this as evidence of Bigfoot.
Dr. Katie Gonder is a biological anthropologist with the University at Albany State University of New York. She has tracked primates for 2 decades.
When in the wild, when you see footprints, you rarely see footprints that are this perfect. Footprints or handprints or of variable depth, they're smeared. This looks like a stamp was made. So this footprint actually looks like something that would be marching very hard and moving vertically up and down as it moved through the forest. That's very inconsistent with the way that most animals move. Many animals with a gait like that would be gliding along, and they would be leaving smeared footprints, not footprints with a deep impression. The most significant problem with it is that there's no scale, so it's very difficult to say how big this foot actually is.
The Idaho footprint is inconclusive at best, so Meldrum turns to the video captured by the students.
I'm just impressed. I mean, you can see the outline of it. You can see its joints, the elbow, the wrist, the curve of the hand. What strikes me is when you see that movement, it's this very fluid movement as it retreats into the forest. I get the impression of a massive body with large shoulders and very massive, powerful arm, a low set, forward set head on these massive shoulders.
I never really thought too much about Bigfoot before, but this definitely put it in my mind.
This may be a video of a fleeting encounter with a Sasquatch. But again, it falls far short of the standard of evidence required to demonstrate the existence of this creature. So in that sense, it's only suggestive.
The footprint that I saw was to be very unlikely to have been made by the animal that was filmed here. This animal is walking kind of bent over. It's not walking along, and it's very clear that that footprint would have been made by something that was really stamping hard and vertically into the snow. Based on that evidence, I would say it would be difficult to conclude that it's anything other than a bear. It looked very much like a bear moving through some brush and then going back down on all fours at the end. That's what it looked like to me.
The mountains of Idaho near Pocatello are home to the North American black bear.
We have lots of known or probable misidentifications. People saw something. What was it? Least likely was that it was a Bigfoot. Much more likely that they saw, say, a bear.
Dr. Joe Nickel is a former private detective turned author, skeptic, and full-time paranormal investigator.
We know that if you have Bigfoot on the mind and you see something in the woods, you may be apt to see Bigfoot when it was actually a bear or anything.
There's not really any evidence to suggest that it's anything other than a bear, and a bear and Bigfoot are presumably roughly equivalent in height.
North American black bears standing on their hind legs can reach nearly 2 meters tall and can weigh to 270 kilograms.
The presence of bears in the forests also creates a pitfall in that Enthusiastic investigators often jump to premature conclusions. A flash of fur in the woods is perceived as Bigfoot, when in fact it could very likely be a bear.
Recent research shows that Sasquatch and Bigfoot sightings almost always occur in or near bear habitats.
What these studies conclude is that many of the Bigfoot sightings might actually be black bear sightings.
I've seen a ton of bears out in the wild. I've seen them walk upright. I've seen them walk on all fours. I'm not sure what it was, but I know it was not a bear.
Back in New York's Adirondack Mountains, investigator Steve Culls is counting on capturing that conclusive evidence through his ongoing search for Sasquatch.
We have the technology perimeter, so the whole idea is to get it across the technology perimeter. Knocking is what we believe is a tactile form of communication. A lot of times in areas that have had Sasquatch sightings, a lot of people hear tree knocks, wood on wood, something like this. So what we've surmised is that it may be some form of communication between them. Could be GPS, could be the one telling another one that I'm over here, but we're really not sure. But a lot of times, people have done tree knocking and have elicited a response from the middle of the forest, including here. And then another series of 5 knocks. We're knocking and waiting, and perhaps it will encourage them to come in and take a look at us.
There's behaviors people report for